3, 2, 1. Good morning, Leavenworth citizens. Welcome to the Mayor's Facebook Live Town Hall, number 13. Today is July 1st, 2020. We are halfway through the year 2020, and quite a year it's been in the first 6 months. Let's hope there's a little less excitement and maybe a few less challenges over the next 6 months, but 2 weeks ago we had our last town hall. Today we are going to cover a number of topics. The first, my special subject matter expert, special guest, is Ms. Janet Klaczynski, who's the county clerk for the county of Leavenworth, and she will start here in about a minute, but and then we'll go on to other things that we normally cover, such as COVID-19, the CARES Act, the Paycheck Protection Program, some other information about money that's flowing down from the state to the county and then to cities. And that's the CARES Act's funding that we'll concentrate on. The city budget, which we're getting ready to have a meeting on the city budget in the next 10 days. Camp Leavenworth, those last 2 or 3 things, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager, but I am going to spend some time on COVID-19. I'm going to talk a little bit about the announcement yesterday or Monday on the closing of St. Luke's Cushing Hospital here in Leavenworth, and I may touch on a few other subjects. But my first guest is Ms. Janet Klaczynski, who serves as the county clerk for the county of Leavenworth, and she has a lot of important duties. I'm just going to highlight 4 or 5 of them. She is the official secretary of the Board of County Commissioners. She serves as the Leavenworth County Election Officer. She prepares the tax roll for the county and then furnishes an abstract of the taxes to be collected by the county treasurer. She maintains the record of all special assessments, both county and city. She registers temporary notes and bonds, which we have a lot of that going on in the city, and of course the county does too. And for those of us interested in recreation and sporting activities, she issues hunting and fishing licenses. But today she's here to talk about the upcoming, or really the election season that we're currently in, and no better subject matter expert than to talk about that, and than to have Ms. Klaczynski here. So I think I'll give her, a few minutes, a little while to talk about what's going on, and then hopefully this will generate some questions from the audience. Ms. Klaczynski, good to see you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm more than glad to talk about the topic of the elections, because I do think it is very important to the voters and the citizens for Leavenworth County. August 4th is our primary election, and some important days leading up into the 4th of August is July 14th. July 14th at 5 o'clock, the voter registration rolls will close. There's many opportunities out there. You can apply by calling our office, and we will actually put a voter registration form in the mail to you. You can go online through the Secretary of State's office, or you can visit leavenworthcounty.gov. We have direct links there that you can also register to vote. On that same topic, remember, if you have moved or changed your name, you will need to re-register. And in doing that, it will save you a lot of time when you do go to vote on that August 4th election. Another important date I think we need to talk about is July 15th. July 15th, advance voting begins. Now, this year, actually due to COVID-19, we did mail out advance ballot applications to all the voters countywide. Boy, what a great response we've had. This morning I checked, we've had 9,000 applications returned. Hard to believe that, but that is actually more people than voted in the 2018 primary election. So I think that's a It's a good point. It shows that there is a lot of interests out there, and we're excited to get those processed. Those ballots, those advanced ballots will go in the mail on July 15th. So you can be expecting to see those in your mailboxes just a day or two after that. But getting back to advanced voting in person, we will have that available at the courthouse, in my office, or downstairs in the conference room. With the courthouse currently still being locked, our phone number will be on the door, and we will make that access easy for you to come in and vote in person if you want to. One thing that I do want to mention is if you have applied for an advance ballot by mail, you need to use that ballot, because we show that you're getting an advance ballot by mail. And so it's important to take advantage of the fact that you applied for that and don't come in to advance vote in person or go to the polling place. So that's really, really important. There's a lot of candidates on the ballot. On our website, we have a list of those candidates, and any questions that you have. A lot of the questions can be researched through our website, but we're certainly available by phone to answer any of those questions. Those are just really a few of the dates and a little bit of the subject matter that I wanted to discuss. I can look at different questions that we get asked quite a bit. Remember, August is an election by party. And so in order to vote, you have to be a Democrat or a Republican, or if you're unaffiliated, you can declare clear up into Election Day. And that's kind of a fact that a lot of our voters may not realize. So do you have any questions for me?
None yet from Facebook.
I've got a couple. With respect to the advanced ballot applications which have been sent out,
Yes.
is the deadline passed as to when they can be returned, or when's the last day they can be returned by?
Good question. We can receive those clear up until a week before the election.
Oh, okay.
So there's still plenty of time for the voters to turn those applications
okay.
in. Something really that kind of leads into that conversation would be the fact that a lot of people may not want to vote in this August primary. And so even if you don't vote in the August primary, you can still vote in the general election.
That's a good point.
That is not a requirement to vote
Right.
in the August primary. So.
Right, that's a very, very good point. And not to get ahead of ourselves, but I guess the general election's on the 3rd of November, right?
Yes, the general election's on the 3rd of November, and of course, that election, any presidential election, will generate probably a 75–78% turnout. Currently, we have right at 50,000 registered voters in Leavenworth County, and so we do expect a high turnout for November. I actually expect, even with the COVID going on and the number of advanced ballots that will be going out in the mail, I do expect a bigger turnout for August than I normally would.
Yeah, based on, right.
The polling places, we get asked several times, are the polling places
Right.
going to be open? The polling places will be open.
Okay.
We will put PPE equipment available. We will have some hand sanitizing stations as you walk into the polling place. Depending upon, different regulations that are recommended to us by the Secretary of State's office or our health department director, I'm sure we'll practice some social distancing. And try to make that environment as safe and secure for each one
Good.
of our voters.
And so the plan right now is that all the normal polling places will be open on the 4th of August?
Yes, I do have one polling place that I may not open,
Okay.
that I'm gonna move,
Okay.
but overall, 99%
Okay,
of our
good.
polling places will
Right.
be.
And in the early voting, which begins on the, is it the
15th.
They will they should come into the clerk's office to do that, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right. And our phone number will be
Sure.
right there on the
Okay.
door, so.
Any questions from the citizens?
Nope.
I think that's it, unless there's something, you've covered it very well, and I think, yeah, through your office, through the internet, I think if people want to get registered, if they're not yet registered, they need, I would highly encourage them to do that, and also if there's some changes with respect to, as what you said, the address, and what was the other thing?
Changing their name.
Yeah, changing the name, yeah.
Yes, please take advantage of that and get re-registered.
Yeah, right.
Because you do need to be registered with the correct name
Yep.
and at the correct address.
And people get busy, but there's still some time left, so I strongly echo Ms. Klozinski's comments, and I really appreciate you coming by today and sharing your expertise with our citizens.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting
Okay.
me, and certainly available for any questions from the public. Just call my office, and we'll be
Good.
there for you guys. So thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for coming, and have a
you.
good rest of your day. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. I'm going to go ahead and go on to COVID-19, and I'll review some statistics as I've done in the past. Probably a little, not get into as much detail maybe as I have in the past, but I'm going to make some comparisons between today and what I reported and the statistics from 2 weeks ago. In Kansas, this is as of Monday, 29 June 2020, 12:30 p.m. Now Kansas is reporting, and so is actually Leavenworth County, reporting 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. There's a little offset as far as the time. The state posts their data as of 12:30 p.m. on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and the county posts their information as of, I believe, 4:30, either 4 or 4:30 p.m. on those 3 days. So Kansas cases, 14,443, and 2 weeks ago was at 11,580. So over 2 weeks, there's been an increase of almost 2,900 cases, people who have tested positive for COVID-19. And not good, but that's a 25% increase over the last 2 weeks. So the numbers definitely are going up with respect to people testing positive within the state. Any of us who've been following it realize that we're not as, it's not as draconian as some of the other states within our country who are experiencing just, astronomical number of positive cases, but that's the stat for Kansas over the last couple of weeks. Hospitalizations, 1,152. Statewide deaths, 270. 2 weeks ago, there were 245, so that represents an increase of, unfortunately, 25 people have passed away due to COVID-19. That's a 10% increase over those 2 weeks. So we're not flattening the curve, and that's concerning. That's kind of the bottom line. And when you don't flatten the curve, you've got more people that are getting sick. And one of the things is it provides more people that you have to trace. And that gets very complicated and can be very challenging for the counties who have that responsibility within the state of Kansas. Once the person tests positive, there's a tracing effort that goes on to find out the people that this person had come in contact with, within the recent days of being tested and coming up positive. So the total case rate per thousand within the state then is almost 5%, 4.96%, so just about 5%. Last time in the state, it was at 3.92%, so there's been an increase of almost 1% in terms of the total case rate, people testing positive for COVID-19 per 1,000 over the last 2 weeks. Let me just talk about Leavenworth cases, and then I'll come back to some of the statistics for the state. Leavenworth cases as of Monday, 1,162. And so that represents a case rate, total case rate per 1,000 of 14.2%. Of number of people tested, 14.2% are coming up positive. Last time it was 13.6%, so we've seen an increase in the county of 0.6%. The number of community cases, 247. This is as of Monday at 4 or 4:30 p.m. That's a plus 41 since 2 weeks ago, since June 17th. So that's a relatively high number for the county, particularly as compared to like the latter part of May and the first half of June. 67 of those were in the Grossman Center, and all those patients have recovered. And then total at the Lansing Correctional Facility in terms of inmates was 848, which, you know, comes up to this total case load of 1,162. And in the inmates, it is interesting. There have been 12 additional inmates since June 17th, 2 weeks ago, that have come up that have been tested positive for COVID-19. So I wasn't aware. I wasn't tracking that until I looked at the statistics early this morning. But that's a little bit concerning because I thought generally we had that under control. It's not as bad as it was when it first struck the inmates within the Lansing Correctional Facility, but there still is infection that is going on, at least in some places within Lansing Correctional Facility. Let me get back to the state statistics. The average age of a person testing positive is 41 years old. The youngest is 0, a baby. The oldest case is a person 103 years old. By gender, 6,616 are females. That represents 45.8% of the people testing positive. Males, 7,606. That represents 52.7%. And not reported / unknown is 221, and that's a low percentage of 1.5%. So the males are outpacing the females with respect to contracting and testing positive for COVID-19, and that's been pretty consistent. I think the percentages have changed a little bit, but this has been a consistent statistic over the last few months. Statewide deaths, 270, as I said. Median age is 79, youngest age 29, oldest age 99 years of age. And the deaths by age group continue. 85 plus years old, 36.7% of people who pass away from COVID-19 are in that age group. People ages 75 through 84 is the next highest. There's 60 people who have passed away. That represents 22.2% of the people who unfortunately have passed away. And then 65 through 74 years of age, 52 people in that age group have passed away, which represents 19.3% of the people who have passed away because of COVID-19. Let me talk a little bit about Kansas testing rates. The number of people who've been tested in Kansas is a little over 176,000, and the percent who have tested positive based on the number of tests issued is 8.2%. 2 weeks ago it was 8.4%, so that's a little bit of a decrease, probably not statistically significant. And the testing rate per 1,000 people in the state is, as of the report on Monday, was 60.5%. So, and 2 weeks ago it was about 47%. So that's going up. So we're doing more testing, and that's reflected in that testing rate per 1,000, increase of about looks like about 13%. So that's good in terms of the testing rate, a per capita testing rate figure statistic within the state of Kansas. For Leavenworth County, testing rate per 1,000 people, number of patients, number of people that have been tested, 7,176. That represents a testing rate of 87.8% per 1,000 people. That's a good number. That's a high percentage. 2 weeks ago, it was about 75.5%. So means that the number of the amount of testing is increasing within the county. That's a positive statistic, and that's reflected in this increase in the testing rate, the per capita testing rate within our county. Just as a comparison for other counties in the vicinity of Leavenworth County, Wyandotte has a testing rate of 90.6%, very, very high. Johnson County, 70.8%. Douglas County, 49.1%. Atchison, 55.7%. So, you know, and having the increase actually in Leavenworth County from 2 weeks ago was a 12% increase in the testing rate per 1,000 people. So that's good. That's a good statistic there, and we're heading in the right direction as far as that goes. You know, the only other thing I'll say about Leavenworth County is that I'd mentioned it when I first got started. The end of May, the first 2 weeks of June, really the range of number of cases, new cases per day, was anywhere between 0, obviously a great number, and 2. So things were, you know, relatively low in terms of the reporting of number of new cases per day. But I will say since about the 17th of June, which was 2 weeks ago, those numbers of cases per day are going up, and now the range is anywhere from 3 to 9, and that's concerning. I mean, you can see the bar chart in this chart that if you go to the county website, COVID-19, you know, they have this chart here. It's very, very good. You can see at the bottom. It's hard to see here, but you can see the bar chart and showing that range that I just talked about, and that's concerning. And we really need to reverse that. And maybe we'll talk about some things that we could do a little bit better to do that. But that's not a good trajectory. That's not some good information that I have to report from the last 2 weeks. So we, you know, my point is that we really need to do better in flattening the curve and getting back to 0 to 1, no more than 1 new case, because then you are flattening the curve. If you can get to, you know, no more than 1 person testing positive, preferably less than 1, then by definition we're flattening the curve, but we're not doing that right now. Let me talk a little bit about, because we've done this, some of the programs that were put in place as a result of legislation from the United States Congress and also by the state. And so I'll just briefly review what I know today. I'm not going to be real specific, but there are some things happening, but they don't seem to be getting as much visibility because we're well into this, 3 and a half months into this COVID-19 health crisis. The unemployment benefit where was passed, one of the bills, it may have been CARES Act, which was the first major coronavirus relief bill that Congress passed, you know, almost $2 trillion. I don't remember whether it was that bill exactly, but there was an unemployment benefit passed for people on a weekly basis. They would get $600 additional per week if one had filed with their state and filed for unemployment. The state of Kansas approximately gives $300 per week for people unemployed who filed for unemployment, and then the $600 over the last 6 weeks to probably about 2 months has been added to that. Now that's set to expire on the 31st of July, and I don't know what's happening. We need to find out. I heard that there may have been a bill introduced by a couple of senators yesterday. Will Katz and I talked early this morning, and tying it to the unemployment levels in the states, but that's kind of murky. But I would think that would be something that I would certainly support for our citizens who you know, have been unable to go back to work. Would be an extension of that unemployment benefit, but that's something that your U.S. Congress person and/or U.S. senators, will have a say in, and just to let you know, if you're interested in contacting them about it and letting them know what you think, I would strongly encourage you to do that. PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, was set to expire yesterday, which was the 30th of June at midnight. There may be, Will wasn't exactly sure, but that program, in terms of being able to get those funds, I think may have received an extension. I really do need to double check that. I will, and we can put it out on the city website under our coronavirus portion of the website when I find out for sure. But I know that there's about $130 billion of untapped money from the CARES Act that can go to businesses, particularly small businesses, applying for the Paycheck Protection Program. So that's a lot of money, and it's still available. I guess most of the small businesses thus far who've needed the money have applied for it, but there is additional money there from the second tranche of dollars that was provided. I think it was like the fourth coronavirus bill, the one that came after the initial CARES Act, but that's kind of a FYI. In terms of forgiveness of the Paycheck Protection Program loan, that was the period in terms of when you can claim your payroll. In other words, if you have these payroll expenses, 60% of your expenses are for payroll, then you can do that. You can claim, you can ask for forgiveness. There's an application for forgiveness, and about a month ago I talked about it being pretty complicated. I need to get an update on that, but the whole thing is the whole forgiveness window has been extended, and this ability to apply this 60% has been extended for an additional 16 weeks. So it was initially supposed to end yesterday, the 30th of June, but now it's good through July, August, September, and probably sometime until in October, at the end of October, where people who have this Paycheck Protection Program loan, if 60% of their expenses are for their people, for their labor, they can ask for the forgiveness of the entire loan. And that loan was a 1% interest rate. But I would really encourage small businesses to do and that they need to talk to their banker or the Small Business Administration about filling out that application, because I believe that application does come from the Small Business Association. That's association, but the Small Business Administration, Small Business Administration, part of the federal government. That would be the application that has to be filled out. But there is more time to do that now because they've extended the period for forgiveness and for the ability to keep tracking the 60% of cost to the business being for labor. So that's pretty good news with respect to the Paycheck Protection Program. The Emergency Injury Disaster Loan, which is a loan that's directly available from the Small Business Administration. Mr. Wilcatz told me that 90 to 95% of applicants have heard back. This is nationwide, so that's been a pretty successful program. That loan, that EIDL, has been around for 20 or 25 years, and I think maybe initially it wasn't taken advantage of as much as the small businesses probably needed to initially, but it's sunk in that this is another source of funds to help small businesses through this very, very challenging period in terms of our economy based on what's happened with COVID-19. And so 90 to 95% of applicants are in good shape. They've received their distribution, and there's probably a small percentage of small businesses that still, maybe have an application in and haven't gotten the money back, but it's a very, very single-digit small percentage. And of course, Will's office, Small Business Development Center, covers several counties in northeast Kansas, including Leavenworth, has his office at KU, so doing most of his work from home, as are his employees. He does get to Leavenworth maybe once a week or once every 10 days to take care of certain business. But I just kind of mentioned that the whole buzz at KU is that, what's going to happen for the upcoming year, the upcoming academic year for the students at KU. And nothing official, I don't think, has been released yet. I know that KU has really done a great job keeping their students and staff and faculty updated as far as what they're thinking, the options that, that are available to the university. And they've got some, some tough decisions to make. And what we talked about before in terms of the progression of the actual virus getting worse, not as bad in our state as other states like California and Arizona and Texas and Florida, but still the numbers are concerning. And, wearing masks, social distancing, washing hands, all those things are super important. And I just encourage people to continue doing that and even up our game as far as those 3 or 4 things. Because I'd like to see the students here at KU be able to go back to school as they did at the beginning of last academic year. But I think that's going to depend a lot on what's going on. And even if they do go back, if there's students that come down with, it's a significant number, come down with COVID-19, then they'll have to go to some other option, distributed learning or whatever. So that's kind of an update that he had given me, and I was kind of aware of that as my wife is on the staff and faculty of KU, and she's been kind of keeping me abreast of what's going on in terms of the information she's getting from the provost at the vice provost there at KU. And with respect to our public school children, students, in USD 453, the Leavenworth School District, and also USD 207, the Fort Leavenworth School District, all the school districts within Kansas will be receiving an update in terms of the way ahead from the Kansas State Department of Education on or about the 10th of July. And as to whether, school will open in August and kind of per normal in terms of all students coming back, for resident classes as they've done in the past. If that's the case, I'm sure there's going to be some stipulations as far as, I'm not sure about masks, but social distancing, number of children and staff within a classroom, some other things, some other protocols that may have to be followed. But I know the 2 school districts and us as a city commissioner are looking forward about 10 days from now of receiving that information. And it could be some type of hybrid where maybe students and staff come in 3 or 4 days a week, and one of the days is distributed learning, distance learning, but I'm sure they're working very, very hard right now to come up with whatever the policy is going to be on or about the 10th of July for the public school students and districts within the state of Kansas. I'm going to turn it over to, unless I have questions, or any questions for me on the COVID-19, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager, Mr. Paul Kramer, to cover a few things.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple items related to how the city's functioning right now. Some things out there that may affect the city from a budget standpoint, from a CARES Act standpoint. The city did receive notification this week from Leavenworth County that in the state of Kansas, the CARES Act funding from the federal government, this is the stimulus dollars that Congress has continually passed a couple different phases of, have finally trickled down to the local governments in the state of Kansas. So how this is going to work is the county will hold the funds that have been held in this area, and then the city will create a spend plan based on eligible activities. And there's a wide swath of those. And so our spend plan will eventually be public as we work through what is eligible and what's not. We're going to definitely explore any ways that we can get funding to our small businesses, potentially our healthcare providers, and also continue. I think it's important to note also that the city has allocated quite a bit of funding so far to our third-party agencies for rent and utility assistance, and an announcement on another batch of dollars going to those entities will come out here in about the next week, and we'll continue to try to fund those agencies that are helping on the front lines with people who have had issues with their income and income disruption based on COVID. So as city staff works to prepare our funding plan to the county to use some of those care fund dollars, we'll share that information with our citizens, let you know how we expect to spend those dollars going forward. That leads me into the city budget. In the state of Kansas, cities have to have their approved budget to the county by August 25th. So if you start working backwards, we have our city commission public budget hearings Friday, July 10th. And so staff starts creating this budget in April, May, and June. So the big sort of the gorilla in the room this year is the uncertainty created by COVID. The city of Leavenworth is funded 45% by sales tax. So that is our, by far, our highest revenue source. And we have about a 2-month delay on what our sales tax numbers are. So we created the 2021 budget really not only having no idea what the rest of 2020 is going to look like, but then what will 2021 look like. So what we've done is focus on, and this will be presented Tuesday night at our meeting and then to the commission on Friday, prioritize public safety and infrastructure and try to reduce any impact to residents. And that would be fees and taxes that our goal is to not impose any new burdens on our citizens. So again, Tuesday night, I will present that to the City Commission. Those meetings are available on Facebook Live, certainly on Channel 2, the city's website, and then our budget meetings on Friday, July 10th. Also Tuesday night, we're going to have an announcement about Camp Leavenworth. I don't think it's getting out ahead of ourselves to announce that Camp Leavenworth will not look like what it looked like our inaugural year. It was probably the event of the year last year as far as the city goes. It was a wonderful way for the community to come together, and it's too bad, I guess, but understandable. I would hope that we can't do that same event style in 2020. However, we have a very talented team we work with that puts on that event for the city, and they have come up with some really unique ideas, all based around bringing the community together. So I won't get too far out ahead of that presentation, but Tuesday night, they will unveil sort of the 2020 version of what Camp Leavenworth, or that just the spirit of that event, means. So looking forward to that, and following that meeting on Tuesday night, we'll of course put that out on all of our social media and city website and information, and see how we can spread that information out about how you can be involved and what it'll look like for 2020. I think the mayor is going to touch a little bit on some initiatives, or an initiative the police department's doing related to a community conversation. And as far as the city goes, one more thing I'll briefly talk about is I think everybody knows that the governor has indicated that she will issue an executive order relating to a requirement of wearing masks. One clarification on that. If you read the governor's, the order has not been issued, but the governor's office did put out a statement, and is it included in there that it's masks in public places where social distancing of 6 feet cannot be maintained. So even if the order did go into effect in Leavenworth County, it would still only apply to situations where social distancing cannot be met. However, the governor did indicate that counties can opt out of her executive order. And I think the county has already put it out that they're going to hold a special meeting Thursday, tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. to discuss this. And again, this is a county decision on whether to allow the governor's order to go in place for Leavenworth County, or if Leavenworth County elects to opt out of that executive order. So again, I know the city gets a lot of comments about what should happen. But that is a county decision to be taken up by the Board of County Commissioners. So those are the highlights I had. If there are any questions come in, or if you have any questions, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions come in? Okay. No, good rundown, Mr. Kramer. One thing that I do want to talk about, very distressing news as far as I'm concerned, and I know that my fellow city commissioners feel the same way. Yesterday or Monday, St. Luke's Health System, Cushing Hospital here in Leavenworth, the St. Luke's Health System announced that the Cushing Hospital here in Leavenworth will close October 1st. There's an article in the Leavenworth Times, both online, and I think it'll be in the print edition today, that's delivered to citizens who subscribe to the Leavenworth Times in the city. And Officials with the health system cite the financial impact of the COVID-19 pandemic as being responsible for the decision to close the Leavenworth Hospital. About 70 employees may be impacted, but all of them are eligible to apply for other positions within the St. Luke's health system. As we know, Cushing Hospital has been in Leavenworth since 1894. And last year, just last year, in 2019, St. Luke's Cushing Hospital transitioned to what officials called a community hospital model, which includes 12, not ICU beds, but patients who need a high level of care. There are 12 beds at Cushing Hospital, so at some point between now and October, or in October, that will be a capability and that will no longer exist within Cushing Hospital. Of course, the emergency room will go away, which is a real concern as far as I'm concerned for the people, our citizens here, which leaves only one emergency room for Leavenworth, Lansing, and Fort Leavenworth, the military personnel and their families on Fort Leavenworth. So let me I was able to issue a statement. I gave a statement late yesterday morning to the Leavenworth Times, and this is what I said. I was angry and extremely disappointed about the decision to close Cushing Hospital, particularly during this time when we've got a full-blown pandemic going on within our nation. Once again, St. Luke's Health System has made a decision with major ramifications for Leavenworth citizens without bothering to give the City Commission an explanation, much less adequate advance notice, I said in my statement. And I went on to say, with the City Commission's approval, I intend to invite the CEOs of both the St. Luke's Health System and the Cushing Hospital to explain the decision to close Cushing and the steps they will take to mitigate the impact to the Leavenworth patients. So I will ask for my fellow commissioners for us to come to a consensus on that at our meeting on Tuesday, and then if we do, I'm pretty confident we will, I will issue an invitation to both of these CEOs and to come to explain what they've done and maybe some steps they could take to really try to mitigate the impact on their patients and the citizens of Leavenworth, particularly during these very, very challenging times with respect to COVID-19. And then part of the article said that while Cushing Hospital will close, St. Luke's primary care Cushing facility will remain open, according to the news release from the St. Luke's Health System. But as I said, that's the only thing that's been out there is the news release, nothing directly to the elected officials of the citizens of Leavenworth, which is the city in which their hospital is located, which is one of the reasons that I wasn't very happy about not only the decision, but the fact that we didn't know about it, even getting any advance notice, 12 hours, 24 hours, 36 hours, or whatever. Next, I am going to, last 2 weeks ago, I talked about a initiative, a program that Leavenworth Main Street is working over the next few months to get Leavenworth downtown back on track. Just let me talk a little bit about this program. It's Leavenworth Getting Back on Track, Ticket to Shop. And this is a program that will run from June 15th, 2 weeks ago, through September 12th. This is a three-part program to encourage folks to shop, eat, and utilize all the wonderful services offered downtown Leavenworth. This is an event co-sponsored by the Convention and Visitors Bureau here within the city government and Leavenworth Main Street attached. And there's a flyer that's out and about with many of our businesses downtown or at the Leavenworth Main Street office on Cherokee. And it's based on receipts. Each patron, each person who goes down buys items, merchandise from our business people downtown during a given time period. And there are 3 periods, each culminating with the drawing for Leavenworth Main Street bucks and items from merchants and restaurants or services. The value of each drawing increases each time. $200, $250, and then $350, and then $500. I didn't think there was a fourth period, but I guess there is. Let me just read this. So I guess, yeah, there are 3 periods and then one final drawing. June 15th to July 18th is that first period, $100 in receipts. July 16th through August 15th, shop and turn in $150 worth of receipts from downtown merchants, retail, restaurants, and services. The ticketer is entered for a chance to win $250, a $250 gift basket filled with local merchant items and Main Street bucks. And that there'll be a Facebook Live drawing in front of Main Street mural, August 19th, 2020. And actually, at the end of the first period, there'll be a Facebook Live drawing in front of Main Street mural, which is on the side of the Leavenworth Main Street office on Cherokee Street, July 22nd, 2020. And then the third period, August 16th through September 12th, shop and turn in $175 of receipts, and the ticketer's entered for a chance to win a $350 gift basket. Facebook Live drawing in front of the Main Street mural, September 16, 2020. That's when that'll occur. And then finally, I guess on September 25th, all Ticket to Shop entrants are included in the grand prize drawing on Friday, September 25th, 2020, for a chance to win a $500 gift baskets filled with local merchant items and Main Street bucks. And there'll be a Facebook Live drawing in front of Main Street mural on that particular day, September 25th. So that's a good program. You can go online, Leavenworth Main Street, go check out their website or their Facebook page, and very, very good program, well thought out, and I would encourage people to support our local businesses and try to get us back on track as quickly as possible. Wearing masks, of course, and social distancing to the best that you can in the stores, some of which are, don't have a lot of floor space, but that's okay. Let's support our merchants downtown. And then finally, I wanted to remind citizens that the Leavenworth Police Department is holding a series of public forums titled A Community Conversation on Police Use of Force. We will talk about laws that govern use of force policy, use of force training, body-worn cameras, and other related issues. And the first one of these public forums is scheduled for Monday, July 13th, 2020, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Riverfront Community Center, the Riverview Room. And the second public forum is scheduled for Saturday, August 8th, 2020, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at St. Mary University here in Leavenworth at McGilley Fieldhouse. So try to put those 2 public forums on your calendar. I'm hoping for a really good turnout. I know it's a very, very critical and important conversation, and I salute Chief Pat Kitchens and the city manager for taking the initiative to do this. I will be there, as I'm sure most, if not all, our commissioners will be, but I'd like to see as many citizens as possible out to these 2 public forums to discuss this community conversation on police use of force. Any questions from, okay? Have to do all the talking. So I think that's it as far as the subjects that I wanted to cover. I don't really need to do too much to wrap up, other than as I've said, and I always mention this at the end, that during this COVID-19 health crisis, which we're still in, and frankly, it's really a critical period because we sacrificed a lot as citizens within our city, within our county, within our state, other states, but things are, not good within our nation right now with respect to the number of positive cases. Just the way it is. We lead the world in terms of the number of positive cases per capita, and we don't want to get to that point where, in these various problems with the availability of ICU beds and ventilators and all that kind of stuff. So, and we don't want to just make all the sacrifices that we made, in March, the end of March, the last 2 weeks of March, April, May, beginning of June, to not be that we can't take advantage. That really, in the final analysis, may not have made may not make a difference, but certainly we did sacrifice, so hopefully we can build on that and make sure that we didn't do any of that in vain. But the overriding priority of the city during this COVID-19 health crisis has been to do our very best, and that includes the commissioners, the city manager, the city staff, to do our very best to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all Leavenworth citizens. That remains our focus. We understand that the economy is absolutely critically important, but the economy, if we people keep getting sick, is going to be, you know, in my estimation, in my judgment, problematic. So we're going to focus on doing everything we can to support the health, safety, and welfare of all Leavenworth citizens. And as our businesses have opened up, bars, restaurants, retail, you know, I know most of those people who run those businesses are taking the proper precautions, and so I would ask that as a person going into one of these stores, taking advantage of these services, that just, you know, go in there, wear a mask where you can, socially distance, and look out for our fellow citizens, which the things that I just talked about are two of the steps that we can take, that we have been taking, that many people have been taking, but that more of us should take to flatten this curve and get that, you know, that infection rate, that positive test rate below 1, which is what we need to do to flatten the curve and then have it continue to decline. So just my thoughts and prayers go out with, you know, we don't talk about it as much, but all the medical service people, the health people, you know, the doctors, nurses, respiratory therapists, nurses, aides, emergency medical technicians, everybody who's still at the tip of the spear fighting this COVID-19 virus. They're still doing that work, working long hours. You still see the pictures of our, particularly in the hospitals, of the medical personnel, the health professionals in the PPE, the full regalia as far as their clothes, their gowns, their masks, their face shields, and that you know, running, you know, working 8, 12-hour shifts, probably 12-hour shifts in most cases. So keep those people in your prayers, in your thoughts. They're really doing amazing things and saving people's lives and helping people get better. And for those here within our community, that's who we need to be thinking about, because they're still doing a lot of great work, not getting as much, you know, a shout out right now, because that's the function of having lived with something like this for a longer period of time. But their deeds are no less courageous or heroic. And for the people who have passed away from COVID-19 within our nation, within our state, within our county, across the world, we also think about them and their families and say some prayers for them. So that concludes my Facebook Live Town Hall today. The next one will be 2 weeks from today. And so I'll look forward to conversing with citizens from Leavenworth. And today is the 1st of July, so Saturday is the 4th of July, so I wish everyone a very enjoyable and relaxing and safe 4th of July. Remember, fireworks are not allowed within the city of Leavenworth. You can go on the website and see what the policy is, but just a reminder, there was an article in the Leavenworth Times, I think on Friday or Saturday about that, but I think there is going to be a fireworks display at Fort Leavenworth, but it's not open to the public. But I believe they are going to do the fireworks. Is that your recollection of that, Mr. Kramer? So, I mean, if you live anywhere pretty much in Leavenworth, you can get to some high ground. I think you can probably see those fireworks that'll be coming from Fort Leavenworth on Saturday, the 4th of July. So, happy Independence Day, everybody, and we will talk to you in 2 weeks. Good morning.